Hi folks, and welcome to another episode of Careers and Coffee. Now this is a slightly different one, both in time and also what we're going to be talking about today. So today is A-level results day, and there are almost 300,000 students getting their A-level results today. And if it wasn't already sort of nervous enough to get them, given the circumstances, it's incredibly challenging for a lot of young people out there today. However, today we have got on some fantastic guests who will be able to offer some information, some advice and guidance about further higher education, talking about apprenticeships and also some careers guidance to help you navigate what your next pathway is going to be. So I'm going to welcome on some guests today who are going to be able to support some young people getting their A-level results. Good morning, folks. How are you all doing?
Morning.
Good morning.
I mean, let's quickly do sort of a round robin about who's who. So Jackie, can you give us a very brief description of who you are, what you do?
Hi there, my name's Jackie Phipps. I work for Suffolk County Council in the skills team. I generally, my day job, I support schools and colleges in Suffolk and Norfolk to improve the quality of their careers provision. And we also do a lot of training for careers advisors. And I'm also a trained careers advisor myself.
Fabulous, thank you. And head over to Debbie.
Hi, I'm Debbie Mcarthur. I'm the Apprenticeship and Youth Employment Manager, also within the skills team at Suffolk County Council. And part of my role is to manage the Apprenticeships Suffolk service, which is an impartial service who provide advice and guidance to anybody who wants to participate in an apprenticeship.
Marvellous. Cheers, Debbie. And let's go over to Federica. Oh, I think Federica's on mute.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Hi, sorry.
Right.
So my name is Fred and I work for a charity which is called the AIM Group, but I also run the Ask program for the National Apprenticeship Service. So I work in schools in Suffolk and Cambridgeshire, and I just give loads of information about apprenticeships and help support in finding apprenticeships.
Brilliant. Cheers, Fred. And let's head over to Jenny.
Hi, I'm Jennie Grove. I work for Take Your Place. I'm based in Peterborough, and I support a couple of schools in Peterborough, supporting young people. Before lockdown, I was in schools most days, still trying to support students via the internet in many different ways.
Awesome. Cheers, Jenny. And last but not least, Annabelle.
Hi, I'm Annabelle Osborne. I also work for the Take Your Place project, but I'm based in Norfolk from Norwich University of the Arts. So in my specific role, I advise students that are considering a creative subject, so arts, design and media, and that's for pre or post 16 or university options.
Marvellous. Thanks, folks. Right, now, I mean, let's kick off with, I think, first question. You know, there's going to be students opening some envelopes today, whether they're in school or they're getting emails and all sorts. If I'm a student and I've opened that and I've not got the grades and I can't get into uni, what do I do next? Let's over to Jackie for that one.
Okay, thanks, Jordan. First thing, if they've applied for uni, I'm sure they will have already gone on to UCAS track to see if they've been accepted. So even if the grades aren't what they wanted, they may have already been accepted for the university of their choice. If they haven't, there's a couple of things they could do. First of all, I would go and talk to their teachers. A lot of the schools are open today and students are going in and collecting the results, and there'll be people there to talk to. So go to their school or college. And then the next thing they could do is call the university to see if they'll still take them. And then next from there, there's clearing. So quite a range of things to be doing, yes?
That's brilliant. Thank you, Jackie. And, you know, if I've got grades and I'm sat there thinking these aren't right, you know, let's say I was expecting B's and now I've got a U or something crazy. And, you know, we've seen in the press lately about, you know, that situation. What's the next step? Do I speak to someone at college? You know, what do I do?
I think first thing is to contact your school or college and find out what the school sent as their assessed grades. Because if you've been sort of following the press like us sad people do who are into education, will know the last few days have been absolute chaos. The A-levels they didn't sit their A-levels, and the grades were assessed by Ofqual. So they've come up with some complicated algorithm, but part of it is based on their the grades from their teachers. So I think first thing to do is go in and see what the teachers said their grade was. If the teacher said, well, actually, we only thought you were going to get an E and you've got an E, then you haven't got much of a leg to stand on in terms of appeal. But if they said, well, actually, we thought you'd get a B and you've been downgraded to an E, then the school can appeal. And also in the last day or so, they've also been told they can use their mock exam result if they did mock exams, again, to use that as their grade to apply for university. The situation for that isn't clear at the moment. Ofqual are putting out information for schools in the next few days.
Brilliant, thank you. And now I want to talk a little bit more about apprenticeships. So perhaps a question for either Debbie or Fred. Now, if I've applied for uni, but now actually I've changed my mind, I want to do an apprenticeship. What should I do? Who do I speak to? What happens next? So who wants to tackle that, Debbie or Fred?
I think that's a Fred question to start with, I think.
All right, let's kick it over to Fred.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, you can apply for an apprenticeship at any time. I would say you can go on to the National Apprenticeship Service website. So find an apprenticeship, which is a government website, and you can have a look at what apprenticeships are available in your local area, as well as the Suffolk National Apprenticeship website as well, right, Debbie? So have a look on there. You can apply at any time. I would definitely if you have been offered places at university and you're no longer interested, do let the universities know. I think it would still be good to have a backup plan anyway, but you can always apply at any time. If there is a particular employer, though, that you're interested in, they may not have the recruitment process open yet, so you might have to wait a little bit for that to open. So it's worth keeping an eye out on the government website, I would say.
Excellent, cheers, Fred. And if I've got some really, really good A-level results, can I just go and get a degree apprenticeship without having to do perhaps a lower level apprenticeship? How would that work?
You can. There are different ways to approach the high level apprenticeships, and a lot of it does depend on the A-level subjects that you studied towards to start off with, and what degree you want to go on and do. So it works fairly similarly to doing a degree at university, in that if you want to become a nuclear physicist and you studied science at school, then it would be reasonable to expect that if you've got some good A-level grades, you could move into a degree apprenticeship. However, the alternative would be to consider looking at an apprenticeship at a lower level, so a level 3 or something like that, because if you've been doing A levels at school and you've got A levels in English, geography and some humanities subject, but you want to go and be a digital marketer, then at level 3 you get some of that grounding and underpinning knowledge and experience of what it's like to do digital marketing. It's about also being able to demonstrate the skills that are associated with the apprenticeship. You wouldn't necessarily decide that you want to be a doctor and expect to go in as a doctor. You'd expect to start at the bottom and work your way up. And with some of those vocational areas, it's important to do that. Just because you've currently studied at level 3, it doesn't mean to say that you've necessarily got those added workplace skills and behaviours that you will need in order to demonstrate the evidence for the apprenticeship.
Excellent. Cheers, Debbie. And I think a question that's quite pertinent given everything that's going on with the virus. If I've signed up to do an apprenticeship, but then that employer has now went out of business or going out of business, what do I do? Because there's going to be a lot of students in that situation. I think we lost Debbie, so I'm going to kick that one over to Fred. What do I do if that employer then went out of business?
Well, I mean, there is a thing called Apprenticeship Redundancy, which has been introduced because of the COVID situation. So, for example, if you've already started an apprenticeship and you're a couple of months in, and unfortunately the employer goes out of business, the business goes out because of the COVID, then you can apply for a similar role with a different employer and pick up where you left off. But of course, if you choose something different, then you'll have to start all over again. So you only have a limited amount of time to find a new apprenticeship. So it usually takes about 12 weeks. You have 12 weeks to find a new apprenticeship, and to continue where you left off. But again, it does depend on the role that you do in the apprenticeship. If you haven't started it yet, then you may need to look potentially looking at a new employer and reapply again, unfortunately.
Okay, but I mean, it's good to know there's still options there in case that has happened. Now I'm going to go to the lovely colleagues at Nico to ask some questions. I suppose more around sort of HE. Now, let's say, for example, my A levels are some business, physics, politics, but I'm super creative outside of college, and therefore I want to do a degree that maybe reflects that sort of creative personality. Would that be a huge change if maybe I'd pick something totally different? And I suppose I'll give that one to Annabelle, because I know that you focus on sort of creativity and arts in terms of your role at Nico. Would that be a huge change if I change those?
So generally, most universities would like you to study some form of creative subject at A level or BTEC. But just because you decide to make that change doesn't mean that should stop you. So therefore, it might just have to take you down a different path. So whereas you might think, I'll take these subjects and then could I do a creative degree straight away, you might have to do some other course next. There are some creative courses, like say if we look at architecture, or there's some more kind of development coding side of things that actually they don't require a creative subject. So I know architecture, some would like a creative subject as well as maths. But if it's more like a user experience or coding kind of course that you are thinking about, you might actually be able to do that on the subjects that you've got. So it's really dependent on what the subject is. But for instance, if you're doing business, then you want to do fine art, they're going to want to see a portfolio of work. And just because you want to make that change doesn't mean like you can't do it. There just might be a few more steps you need to do in between that. So that's when, like I said, there are lots of courses like access courses at college or BTECs to kind of get you on that road. But it's just something to be aware of. So yes, it's definitely possible, but you just might have to do an extra course in between, dependent on that university degree that they want to do.
Awesome. Cheers, Annabelle. And a question for Jennie. I think with everything that's going on, a lot of students may be thinking, okay, I want to take a gap year. Do you think that would be a good choice, bad choice? What's your opinion on that? Should a student be doing that?
Oh, it's a really tricky one, that. I think the best thing to do is re-examine why you wanted to go to university in the first place, why you chose that course, and then really think about what you would get out of deferring it, and speak to the universities. Every university is taking a slightly different stance, probably going to be a mixture of online and in-person learning. But have a chat. I think the important thing for any student, whatever they're thinking about, is to ask the university how they're going to be supported, because it's going to be a big change from, they've finished school in March and now they're going to go to university. So they need to know that there's going to be support in place, what they're going to do in terms of social distancing while they're at university. And all of these universities will have answers to those questions. But I think it's really important, especially if you're not sure what to do and you're thinking, well, it won't be a good experience, then you need to ask those questions. And I think the other thing to remember is, obviously we're in this situation at the moment. Hopefully things will start to level off, and this might only affect the first few months of your 3-year degree. So you need to put everything into context, I think, and just kind of ask yourself those questions. I don't think there's you should defer or you shouldn't defer. It's going to be very personal to each person.
Brilliant. Cheers, Jennie. And now if I'm a student and perhaps I don't want to pursue education or training, but rather I just want to go off and get a job after my A levels, where do I start with that? Should I be looking at, because given the circumstances, it's quite tricky to get a job. Would you be actively encouraging students to maybe be looking at HE and apprenticeships? But if they do want to get a job, where would you start? And I'll give that one to Jackie.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky. It's and the predictions are that young people are going to be, really quite badly affected by this. But it's not all gloom and doom. One of the things, if you really, if you can stomach another year of education, you could look at your local FE college. They do have courses that are 1-year courses that 18-year-olds or would still be eligible for. The government have also brought in some extra funding for what they call high value qualifications. So things like construction and engineering, IT and health and social care qualifications. They've also got a scheme called Kickstart. So this, you'd have to be signed up with the job centre and claiming benefits. But this is a scheme where they are paying employers 25 hours of national minimum wage to support a young person to get into work and to get those work skills. If you're signed up with the job centre, there's also things like sector-based academies, again, sort of work tasters and the guarantee of an interview for a job. Traineeships, so these would be through your training provider, so you don't have to be on benefits for that, but you would be able to resit your maths and English as well if you needed to, and be getting some work experience. You won't get paid. Could do online learning, volunteering. I mean, there is so much you could do. But I think, you know, first stage would be to talk to your school or college careers advisor. And if they're not available or you're not getting much help from there as well, look at the National Careers Service. So lots of information on there about how to get a job, what different jobs look like, different roles, different sectors. And for New Anglia, we have a site called I Can Be, which again highlights the sectors that are important in this region and the different types of jobs and job roles that are available.
Awesome. Cheers, Jackie. And I want to talk a little bit more about sort of university higher education. I'll lean on my colleagues from Nico for this one. Okay, so, you know, I've got the grades. I'm super excited to go off to uni. What sort of the next steps? What should I think the financial side is huge. What sort of things should I be taking into consideration financially if I'm about to go off to university?
Okay, well, the one thing that I will say about finance, which you didn't say, if you do get a place through clearing, you need to make sure you let Student Finance know that you've changed your university choice. That's really important. But thinking about things when you're going off to uni, the biggest finance is going to be your accommodation. So you need to find out how much that is. And can you lower your expectations? I tend to talk to students who, because they can see the rooms on the university website, you can have a virtual tour and they can see the ensuite. They all want the top one. But if that's going to, you know, use up most of your student loan, is that the best use of your money? So you need to work out your big expenses, your accommodation, if you're going to have to travel, how much is that going to cost you if you're commuting in? Work out your big expenses first and then sort of deduct from your student loans. Just do a little bit of a budgeting exercise. And there's lots of places you can get that on the Student Finance England website or on their Twitter. They do lots of little videos and things to help you with that.
Brilliant, that's great, thank you. And I suppose maybe a question for Nico and Jackie on this one. But, you know, if I'm a student, I've got a learning difficulty, what support can I get to help complete my qualification whilst I'm at university?
I'm going to hand that one over to Nico.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, most universities are really good at providing that support now. They've just got better and better at that, because I think there is a better understanding from universities that if you're going to widen participation, if you're going to welcome more students, then you need to be able to support them. Most universities will have a student support, an academic support and a student support, so pastoral support and academic support. And they will be able to get support. I know that just speaking from Anglia Ruskin University, because that's where I'm linked to, they have a very good sort of a bit like your personal tutor that you perhaps had at school. They have a really good support network for that, and they actually help people. And I've spoken to a student who was a care leaver and needed quite a lot of extra support, and she actually had her personal tutor would work through her assignments with her. You know, obviously she had to do the work, but she was able to help her to understand where she was going wrong if she wasn't getting the grades that she wanted. So I think there is a lot of support at university, but you might have to seek it out. You'll have to make yourself known, because it's a big place. So you'll need to go and find the support yourself. And I think that's really important for any student, to be brave enough to find the support.
Excellent. And Jackie, I think you just had some. Oh, who am I going to first?
Go
Jackie,
to Annabelle.
You want to take that? Okay, Annabelle.
Okay,
fire away, and then I'll come to Jackie.
I was just going to add to that. So yeah, make sure you just you tell the university of whatever your needs are, because if you don't disclose that, then that support isn't in place there. Because there's, for instance, at the university I work for, there's a lot of funding on technical equipment to assist you, whether that's like in lectures, like you can get dictaphones. That there is so much support, whether covering everything, but you just need to make sure you disclose that and make sure they're aware of it. So I wouldn't be worried. If you've got something that it's quite personal to you and you're not sure whether you want to tell the university, all I can say is please do, because they have people in place to help you. And if you tell them, then it's just going to help you on your way. So please don't be worried about that, because lots of people have been employed to help and assist you, and there's so much funding out there to help with that.
Brilliant. Cheers, Annabelle. And over to Jackie.
Yeah, so just carrying on really from what Annabelle was saying, and this is for all students, the universities are really aware of the mental health needs of their students. And before this, they were very aware, but they're even more so aware now, and they're putting extra funding and extra people in place to support people. So please don't be afraid to go and say, you know, I'm struggling, or I don't know how to cope, or I'm anxious, you know, I'm anxious about the COVID situation, or whatever it is. There's lots of things in place. And at UEA, for example, they have a dog walking scheme. Yeah. So they've got some dogs that people take out in the parks there at UEA and talk to other people and take the dogs out, get some fresh air. And that's part of their mental health support. So it's really innovative ways, and please don't feel stigmatized for asking for help.
This is a brilliant scheme. I feel I need to contact HR, get that here at the lab. I think, okay, we just got a question. So what support do NCS offer, and how do I get in contact with them? Now, I am assuming that NCS, they're talking about National Career Service. There we go. So who wants to tackle that one?
I'll tackle that one. So you can ring them. Yes, I think you can ring them, Facebook, Twitter, all these various ways. So go on the website and those will be there. Or if you want a phone number, it's 0800 100 900. You can talk to an advisor, talk through sort of your options and your choices. They're obviously a national organisation, so they're not going to have the real local detail, but for sort of national general advice. And on their website, they have a lot of information on the website. It's not the most whizzy, attractive website, but there's a lot there. You can explore different careers. You can get careers advice around how to do CVs, job hunting, employment skills. And there's also, as you can see on the screen now, there's a skills assessment. So this one is one of many that are about, but you could use this to, if you haven't got much of an idea, you can start thinking about what could match my skills, what could I be good at, what jobs and careers could I think about.
Excellent. Cheers, Jackie. Oh, Fred, yeah, far away. You're on mute. I'm not having much success with that.
Sorry. Sorry, I wanted to add something about the National Career Service. If you also follow the social media, they also have loads of great updates, and they put loads of great sort of online career events and stuff like that, which is really great because it lets you know about the local information as well. So I just wanted to throw that
brilliant.
in there.
Thank you. And I think throughout this call so far, we've talked a little bit about, or clearing has been mentioned. I think it'd be useful if someone can actually give an overview of what clearing is, because to a lot of students that might be a totally new thing, and we've just mentioned it. So who wants to tackle that?
I can do that if you like.
Cheers, Jenny.
So clearing is just an opportunity really for you to find a place. If you weren't successful in your first choice for university because you missed the grades, then you will be released into clearing. If you change your mind as well, if you've got a place on a course but you change your mind and you've done some research, then you can release yourself into clearing as well. And what this does, clearing will give you the opportunity to look for other courses and other universities. There you go, there's the guide, where you can find a place. Now, what UCAS have launched this year is a clearing match. So they will actually match you to some courses. If you've gone into clearing, you'll find a list of courses that they've already sort of done some background based on what you chose originally, what you've studied, and they will have created a list of courses for you that you might want to explore. Then you can tick on it and say, yes, I'm interested, and then the university might get in touch with you. But I wouldn't leave it to that. You can contact the universities. The thing with clearing is you kind of do need to give them a call. You're going to have to make that call to the university, but UCAS have got really good guides on there. There's even somewhere I found a video of like a mock call of what you might want to say. So they've helped you to kind of think about what questions you need to ask. And the thing to remember about clearing is universities are looking for a reason to offer you the place rather than to not offer you the place. They want you, okay? And actually, if you're in clearing, it's not such a bad thing. Universities do still want you. They've got to fill their places. So it's worth speaking to them. The people that you'll speak to when you call up, they'll be very helpful, they'll be friendly, they won't be scary. They want to talk to you, they want to put you at ease, and they just want to have a chat. And talk about why you want to perhaps go to that university.
Marvellous. Thank you for that, Jenny. I think I hear Jackie's dog in the background. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about apprenticeships and HE, just because I think Debbie's been quiet there. I want to hear from her for a bit. Yeah, if I'm a student and I'm sat there this morning and I've got some really good A-level results and I'm actually torn, do I go to uni or do I do an apprenticeship? And there are lots and lots of different pathways to be able to get a degree. It's not just before when, okay, I have to go to university. Now, if I am that young person, you know, I could be watching it right now. Debbie, why should I do an apprenticeship? Sell it to me.
Okay, well, obviously I'm biased. I think for me, the big thing with apprenticeships is it gives you that real life work experience. It provides you with the skills, the knowledge and the behaviours that you're going to need in order to pursue a career in your chosen field. University tends to be, not always, but university tends to be much more knowledge and theory based, whereas within apprenticeships you have much more hands-on skills and as I say, the behaviours. So at the end of your apprenticeship degree, you have the same qualification as you would have done if you had gone to university, but you have 3, maybe 4 years worth of work experience behind you in a providing or fulfilling a real job, and becoming a useful member and a valued member of a working team, and that's the biggest thing, I think. You know, we see a lot of people coming out of university and having studied for 3 years but struggling to find a job because they haven't had a job before within the environment that they want to go and work in. You know, as I say, that's not always the case, but certainly with apprenticeships, it is that the work element that makes them a little bit different.
That's brilliant. Fred, have you got anything else to add on to that one?
No, Debbie's really covered everything. So yeah, apprenticeship is more practical, I guess. So it does depend how the student like to learn, whether it's the practical or the theory way.
I would say it's not easier. A lot of people seem to think that apprenticeship is an easier option, and it's not, because you're holding down a full-time job. You're doing the equivalent of full-time study in probably only one, maybe 1.5 days a week, and you've got the rest of your life to live as well. So it's not an easy option. It's an alternative option.
Yes.
That's brilliant advice. And now I'm going to go over to Nico. Same question to you. You know, I'm Jordan. I've just got my A-level results. You know, why should I go to university instead of getting an apprenticeship?
Well, I think I would just say I wouldn't urge somebody to go to university rather than do an apprenticeship. It's which route is going to be best for them. And as has already been said, apprenticeships are not an easy route. There's such a challenge as well. Universities. Well, it's a different offer, and it will be what suits you. And you've got to think about what you want for the next 3 years. And in a way, a university is a clear path. You know, you're kind of going to go and study that course for 3 years, and then you're going to graduate, and then you can go out. And while you're at university, you might do a course that's a sandwich year, so you do get a year in industry. So I think as long as whatever you do, as long as you make the most of it. So if you're at university, you get some work experience under your belt, you do some volunteering, so that actually when you both finish your degree courses, you both can, whether you've done the apprenticeship or a degree apprenticeship or just a straight degree, as long as you've done all you can during that time to ready yourself for the world of work when you finish, then you're giving yourself the best option. But I think, again, it's one of those things, it's a personal choice based on what you want to do in the future and what experience you want, and how you learn is an important part of it as well.
Yeah, just to add a little bit to that, obviously, like I said, I advise on creative subjects, so there are creative apprenticeships out there, but I'm going to say maybe not as many as other sectors. I know that they are getting more, but that is something to consider. If you're really passionate about a creative subject, there may not be the apprenticeship there for you yet. So that is another thing to think about, and taking those kind of courses at university, you get access to equipment and workshops and knowledge that is all going to benefit you for when you come out into the world of work. Because if you go into like a creative design studio, for instance, and you've had all those years before to gain that knowledge and that experience, for when you get out there, you can go out there, do the job. Here is my portfolio of work. That puts you in a really good place to kind of make it in your chosen profession. So yeah, that's just another thing to consider. But like Jenny said, we're not about pushing someone to go into university if that's not the right option for them, but it's just to look at all those options and see what is best for what their passion is and what the way they want to work and pursue their career.
Awesome, thank you. Now I'm going to tackle some of the questions that we're getting in live as well. So one we've got here, so could I look to set up an apprenticeship by myself, if I know can find a willing employer? So Fred, Debbie, who wants to take that one on?
It's an interesting question. I'm not quite sure which angle that's coming from. I would say that if you know that you want to do an apprenticeship and you know what apprenticeship you want to do, then yes, go and find an employer that can support you with that apprenticeship. And basically referring back to the explanation that Fred gave earlier, it's about looking to see what opportunities are available, checking the National Apprenticeship website, but also contacting employers or contacting companies or businesses that are active within that vocational area that you want to go in, but also thinking outside of the box. If you want to be an accountant, you don't have to only apply to accountancy firms, because the majority of businesses have a finance function of some sort. But difficult to know what the angle of that question is. But yes, if you can find an employer, go and find one and ask them if they can support you as an apprentice. Brilliant.
And Fred, yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to add with what Debbie said. If you do find an employer, but you don't have the education side, you can always contact the sort of local colleges to see if they can support with the education side, so they can get in touch with the employer and arrange all the health and safety and the paperwork. So it's a little bit more complicated way of finding an apprenticeship, but I have had students in the past that have done it that way. So I've had students that through family businesses have managed to set up apprenticeships. But it's a little bit more complicated because you need to get in touch with the local college and make sure that they are running the course, so they will still have to set up all the health and safety paperwork and the frameworks and everything. So it's a little bit longer process.
I think just on this as well, in terms of apprenticeships, similarly, we talked a lot about clearing, but never actually talked about clearing. With an apprenticeship, what's the pathway? So I sign up to an apprenticeship. What happens next? Because I think a lot of people, even if you've not been to university, you'll know that it's similar to college. You'll turn up, you have to go to lectures, etc. But what's the pathway for an apprenticeship? Debbie, do you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, sure. So as Fred quite rightly points out, you need to have a training provider. Each apprenticeship is different. It depends what you're going to be studying towards, and that's the difference, I think, with university. It's fairly kind of standardized in that you within university you have your lectures and you have a set program to follow. With apprenticeships, it's slightly different because it depends on the vocational occupation that you're studying towards. In most cases, you will have a training provider. That could be an FE college, but it could be a private training provider, depending on who offers the training. but it's also about the delivery model. How is that apprenticeship going to be delivered? Does it require one day or time away from work to go to college, which could be day release, it could be block release, it could be all delivered in the workplace. It's a tri-party kind of arrangement between the apprentice, the employer, and the training provider. And those three people are essential to create an apprenticeship. You can't have that apprenticeship without all three parties being involved. So you find your apprenticeship, you need an employer, and you need a training provider who will take you through the qualification or the apprenticeship training. They will guide you, they will be your support. The employer will provide you with the on-the-job training, and the provider will give you the guidance and support you to do the off-the-job training, which, if you want to kind of break it down, is the off-the-job tends to be the knowledge element, and the on-the-job tends to be the skills and behaviours.
That's brilliant. Cheers, Debbie. And we've got a question. So who can I contact for apprenticeship support in Norfolk?
I think it would be any of the large FE colleges in Norfolk would be my suggestion as the first place to try. There is Apprenticeships Norfolk, which is a kind of sister service to the one that we run in Suffolk, not set up quite the same way, but they would certainly be able to give you the advice as to which providers operate in Norfolk and how to go about contacting them.
Brilliant, thank you. And Jackie, yeah, over to you.
Yeah, can I just mention about apprenticeships? What a lot of young people say, particularly the sort of level 2 apprenticeships, the money isn't very good, it's really low, and it's not worth it. I can get more doing a part-time job at Sainsbury's or whatever. Just to point out that, yeah, maybe you might start on a lower salary, yeah, but that's going to increase as you go through your apprenticeship and as you get skilled. So, you know, please don't let that put you off, yeah, and it will be more than what you would get doing a full-time college course.
No, I think that's really, really good to advise on that. Okay, so next one. So what happens if I start an apprenticeship, then realise it's not for me, but I transfer to a university course?
In theory, the answer is yes, you can. But there are lots of ifs and ands and pots and pans in that, I think I would say. So yes, you could transfer. You can transfer to university. You can transfer from university onto an apprenticeship. But what you can't always do is transfer any learning or any work that you've already completed. From an apprenticeship point of view, if you just started a degree apprenticeship and you complete the first year, then I would say there is a possibility that maybe that first year could be recognised in going into university if it's within the same qualification. But you would need to think, say the variables are, is it the same thing that you want to study? If you're going to study something completely different, then you would need to probably wait until the next entry point to university. So it might mean waiting for another year, depending upon whether or not, I know in some universities they sometimes take a January cohort, but not very often. But I'm sure Nyarko can give us the perspective from their side on that.
Excellent, thank you for that. And we've just got another question as well. So you've talked a lot about support available for students receiving results today. What advice would you offer parents and carers supporting young people with the highs and lows of the day? Because I'm sure that they will face the brunt of it. And speaking to colleagues this morning, I know they have. So what advice would you give? Who wants to kick off?
I'll start that, having had children going through this, not today, but in the past. I mean, recognise the stress and the pressure that your children are under. I think try and give them support, but also give them a bit of space. Yeah. And when they may be crying that it's the end of the world, yeah, you probably know that it isn't. Yeah. But to them today it is. And I think it's just being empathetic and kind to them and trying to keep calm yourself, yeah, and use the resources that we've talked about, and perhaps sort of start to look at ones for them, and then sort of pick out the pointers and sort of set them on the way. One of the other bits of advice, if they're phoning the university, please don't do it for them. Yeah, please make sure they do it themselves. You know, maybe if they're really nervous, give them a trial run. Yeah, and pretend you're the admissions officer, and you know, try and get them, you know, confident on the phone. But please don't do it for them, because that won't go down very well at all. And if it's all getting too much for you, go out with that dog walk, yeah, and just take a bit of space before you blow up and add to the situation even more. Speaking from experience here.
Anyone else want to add to that?
No, I think I'd agree with that. And I think, yeah, what you said about the phone calls, I would actually help if they've got to make phone calls. That can be really difficult. You can use, a lot of the universities are doing online chats. A lot of them offer this thing called UniBuddy, so you're chatting to undergraduates. So that might be a way to ease them into it, so they can have a little chat online, and then it'll probably get to the point of phone call, and maybe just writing stuff down for them to actually nudge them to say the right thing. And like you said, just staying calm and keeping it calm for them, and reassuring them that it's not the end of the world. And I think this year is even harder than normal, because it's so much in the press this year, and it's been such an odd year, and they've probably been thinking about it since March rather than just the last couple of weeks as they would usually have done. So I think just trying to take the pressure off in some ways, however that might be, just making it, lowering the pressure in the household, making it a fun day, right? You know, going out and doing something completely different, because you don't have to make all your decisions today. Clearing doesn't close until the end of August. There will be places, and not all going to get snapped up today. Take time to think about it. That's what I'd be saying, I think.
Yeah, I think that's some brilliant advice, because I think for young people as well, they've got to go home and the whole family are at home because everyone's working from there. It's not like you get back to an empty house. You've got probably mum, dad, carers, siblings all there. How do you get on? So no, I think that's a very, very good advice. Okay, so next question. Will I still be able to start university this year if I successfully appeal my grades? I think the dog's got a good answer. Who wants to tackle that?
We were talking about this yesterday, but some universities, it depends what you want to do. If they've made you an offer anyway, but you personally aren't happy with those grades and you want to continue to appeal, then it should be okay. I mean, if they're saying, okay, you didn't quite hit the grades, but you can still start university, then that's okay. But it depends what you're doing. If you're just appealing, or if you want to take exams in October, again, it's all so different and new this year. And I would just speak to the university in the first instance, speak to your school about the appeals process. Some people will be able to start university and appeal, and other people will have different situations. So unfortunately, it's changing all the time at the moment. I don't think there's sort of concrete advice for that, but I would speak to the university and to your school to start with, and see where they lead you. But it might be possible to start university this year and appeal your grades. It depends really why you're appealing, I suppose.
Excellent. Thank you, Jenny. And yeah, I think it's long been an issue around the value that young people are getting out of university, that whole experience. But if you are a young person planning on going to uni, but with COVID, they're a little bit worried because they don't just want to sit there, pay a lot of money to do an online course because they won't get the value for it. What advice would you give to them? They're maybe thinking, well, how much value am I going to get out of this in a COVID world?
I think when you look at any course, you've got to look at it as an investment into your future. I know that the first start of the year will be very different to, say, when I went to university, but the course content, and I know that some universities might be doing a bit more of a blended approach, so it's not, hopefully some might be more online, others you might still be able to go to the university and do certain things, but you're still going to get that course. And where it also, we're in a world that it is going to be hard to find a job. Maybe this is the right time to actually take a course, really focus down. Yes, it'll be slightly different to what you expected, but then you'll come out 3 years, the job sector might hopefully be a bit better, and you've upskilled yourself ready for the workplace. And like Jenny said before, trying to put it into perspective that to start with, it's going to be very different, but maybe 2 years, or in your third year, you know, you might have a bit of a more of the university experience that we've all kind of learnt about. So try not to let it put you off. I think it's still a really good time to like I said, to really invest in your future, particularly to get you skilled and ready out for the career workplace, because it's there are so many people looking for a job right now. It might put you in the best position as well to kind of get out there. I don't know if you've got anything to add, Jenny.
No, I don't think so. I think you're right. It's just the case of going and making the most of it, really. If you're going to make the decision to go, then take all the opportunities that you can. There'll still be volunteering opportunities. There'll still be part-time work opportunities. There'll still be lots of opportunities. It's just about getting there, and you might have to sort of dig in more than perhaps you used to. It's if you go to university and coast along, then you might find that you come out and actually those work opportunities aren't as forthcoming. But if you go and you make the most of everything, then when you go out for interviews, you're in a better position because you've got all that experience as well as a degree. So
brilliant, thank you. And we've got another question in. It's even got Mr. Williamson's new buzzword in there, triple lock. So my son didn't get the results he had been predicted or even achieved in his mocks. Can you explain his options around this triple lock? Who wants to tackle that? Looking at Jackie. There we go.
I'll have a go. Yes. So this is all still being developed. As you say, it's one of the new buzzwords. So basically it means that whichever grade that you've got that is the highest, will be your grade. So let's say you decide I'm going to use my mock grade. You look at a mock grade and that's lower than the moderated grade that you've been given today by Ofqual, or let's say you decide I'm going to resit that A level and you get a lower grade than the moderated grade you've got today. That grade, the highest grade, will still stand. Yeah.
Brilliant. That's excellent.
That's my understanding of it. So I think the thing is, if you want to resit, or you want to look at your mock grade, don't worry about it and think, if it's saying I've got a C and then actually I end up getting a D, don't worry about it because the C will still stand.
Brilliant.
Do you still have to pay for these resits? I don't know the answer to that question, but I think the answer is no. But to be honest, I don't.
Yeah, we've heard of a school that said they were going to charge, but actually these aren't resits because they never sat them. Yeah. They're being called the autumn series. So therefore, I would suggest that they don't have to pay. But I think schools might be making that decision themselves. I'm not sure.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Jenny. There's so many buzzwords. Honestly, it's like bingo, the dear thing. Right. So if I am a young person, and I mentioned this earlier, if I just want to go off, get a job, however that might look like in this new world, what should I be thinking about to make myself a little bit more employable compared to some of the competition out there? And I'm going to kick off again with Jackie on that one, but I think I could probably ask everyone their opinion on that.
Well, first of all, you can think about what skills you need for the kind of jobs that you want. Have you got them? Yeah. Try and start working out where you can evidence from things you've already done. So in the past, what you've done at school or what you've done in volunteering or clubs and activities, all that sort of thing. But also you could think about, what did you do in lockdown? Yeah. Think about it really creatively. And then you could also think about online virtual courses. Lots of them are free. Things like Future Learn is a really good organisation. There's edX. There's another one called Coursera. National Career Service have got some free online courses as well. So perhaps do some online learning. For a lot of them, say they're free and you pay for the certificate, but you don't have to. You can still say you've done these courses. So that's sort of my sort of first sort of ideas of really think creatively about what you've done before, what your skills are and other skills you could do. In terms of volunteering, you may not be able to volunteer face to face, but there's lots of online volunteering opportunities. And I think as the world is starting to open up a little bit more, things like the charity shops, for example, traditionally, a lot of older people worked in charity shops. They're really going to need young people in there to support those shops that are still open.
Excellent. Thanks, Jackie. Fred, what advice would you give to a young person wanting to go off, get a job? What sort of skills should they be thinking about that makes them a little bit more employable?
So I would agree with Jackie. Look at the job spec, the kind of job that you want to do, what kind of skills do you need, and how can you sort of demonstrate that you have those skills. So look at all the things that you've done in school. So exactly what Jackie said, it's really important to also sort of update your CV quite frequently. I think it's quite good to keep an open mind. So don't sort of specifically look at the job title. Have a look at the description of the job. Sometimes they have different job titles, but it may be similar. So it's worth keeping your options open, having a really good look around and see what's out there, because things change all the time.
And I think as well, it's a lot of young people, they're going to have parents who are in jobs, they're going to have their own networks that they can be able to speak to. And I think that's so important that you lean on the people around you, friends, family, contacts, all of those sorts of things, whether it, I don't know, sorting out like a virtual work experience or speaking to someone in that sector. I think that's really important too. Has anyone got anything else to add just on that one before we move on to the next question?
I have. I think the other thing is to, when you're applying for jobs, is to think carefully about the application that you're putting in, especially if it's an online application. If it's asking you to demonstrate how you feel you meet the criteria of the role, then be quite methodical about it and take yourself through every single one of those characteristics or every element that they're looking for within the job role, and try to give examples as well. If they're asking for somebody who's proactive and motivated, why do you feel you're proactive and motivated? If you can give examples, it really, really helps. Spell check, grammar check, get someone else to sense check it. And if you're applying for multiple jobs in a range of different things, because you're keeping your options open and you're going to be cutting and pasting, please make sure that whatever you're applying for is relevant to what you've typed and written in another job application. Is it relevant to the one that you're copy and pasting into as well? An example I use all the time is a young lady applying for a carpentry apprenticeship, and the first line of her application said, "I've always been interested in floristry." So it happens. It happens.
No, I think that's really good advice. And I think, Jenny, you had your hand up as well.
No, sorry, no, I think it's all covered. Sorry.
Debbie's covered it. Awesome. No, that's I think that's very, very good advice. And I think, and I touched on it, virtual work experience. There are lots and lots of different organisations being able to do this, and even just reaching out to someone to say, can we have a chat for 45 minutes about, I don't know, I want to be an accountant, I want to be a florist or carpenter, or whatever it might be. I think that's super important. That you can still have a really meaningful encounter with the world of work, but it can still be over, something like this, or Zoom or Teams and all sorts of stuff. Okay, so next question. Are there local support helplines I can access apart from the National Career Service? Who wants to tackle that? Is there support? Jackie?
Yeah, so I think the best places to go to in Suffolk, there's the Source website. That's as in the source of information, not ketchup or barbecue sauce. Yeah? And on there, there are different tabs saying for today, what can I do after my A-levels, or I'm stuck, what do I do? And they will give you the phone numbers of your local early help coaches who can sort of perhaps support you in some of this. They would also have information about different schemes. Some of them are based across Suffolk, some of them are much more regional, that can offer training, support and advice and sort of work experience to get you started on the road to work. Also on the Source, we have a lot of mental health support as well. There's a call line called Couth that you can actually speak to a counsellor about. So that's free to access. In Norfolk, similar thing, I would go to the Help You Choose website. Again, they would have details of who you can contact to talk to in Norfolk, in your local area, and different support organisations in Norfolk that can help you on the ground. Yeah?
Awesome. Cheers, Jackie. Marvellous. Right, now, we've not got long left, but actually, before I get onto that question, new one, are there any other ways I could obtain a degree without going to university or doing an apprenticeship? Good question. Are there any other ways? Who wants to tackle that? Yeah.
I mean, Sorry, I'll do a little bit. There are alternative providers, so you can do a degree at like a higher education provider. So it's not typically like a university. Could be some colleges will offer them, as well as like there are some, like I said, alternative organisations. But the only thing to be aware with alternative providers are if whether they have got like the same funding, because when you go to university you can apply for student finance, whereas there are some alternative providers that you can do a degree there but they might not have the same awarding body, so therefore you can't apply for student finance. So that's something just to be aware of. That's
brilliant.
what I have to
Debbie?
I was going to say the only immediate one that comes to mind from that would be the Open University.
I was just thinking that. Yeah.
Yeah. You can do a degree with the Open University, and you can get your student finance to do that too.
Awesome. Thank you. Now,
and you could spread that over up to 6 years for doing Open University course.
Yeah.
So you can work.
You can do it alongside work as well, I think, as well. Brilliant. Now, a question for all of you. Rewinding the clocks, what was your pathway? Whether A-level results, whatever it may be, because I think a lot of young people see stuff like this, professionals talking about stuff, and that they've all got it figured out, and everything is, everything's went smoothly for them. Debbie, what was your pathway afterwards? Did you always know what you wanted to do? What happened?
No, I didn't. First thing I would say is that I'm of the age when things were very different when I left school. You went into work, or you went to university, or you went to college to do a vocational secretarial or a trade or something like that. I left school and went to work in a bank, and my career has been rather different, quite eclectic. But I will say that I did go back to college when I was in my mid-40s and did a level 3 qualification. I then went on to qualify as an assessor. I qualified as a teacher. I did a degree. So I've done mine a little bit later in life, but I've perhaps done it when I've had the space and the time and the capacity to take on that learning, having raised a family and had them kind of go off and do their own thing. So you don't have to only be 18 years old to go on and do a degree or further your education.
Brilliant advice. And Jackie, very briefly,
a bit similar to Debbie. I hated school. Yeah, I was forced to do my A levels. I got a D and an E. Yeah, couldn't wait to get to work. And when I was in my 30s, I went back to education. I did an Access course, an undergraduate degree, a master's degree. And those of you who know me, I've never stopped doing qualifications since. And now I train other people in qualifications. So.
And yes, I've been on one of Jack's qualifications, so I'll vouch for that. Jennie, over to you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that I did all the things that I tell people not to do. So I did my A-levels and I did all right, but not great. But then I had applied to university. Then I decided I wasn't going. Then I got a place through clearing, and it was completely the wrong course. I hadn't researched it. I dropped out. I had a year out. But then once I had my year out, I thought about it a bit more and went actually to study something that I really wanted to do. So at 18, I really wasn't ready. And I did the whole thing, when I was saying about asking for help. I was a big fish in a small pond in a small school where I knew everybody, went off to university and realised actually I was really shy and not very good at making friends or asking for help. And I just panicked, and that's why it fell apart. So then when I went back, I did it all and I went and asked questions, and I was better. So at 18, especially with a year like this, if you're not ready, that's okay. There is time. And if you feel like, oh my God, I've made the wrong decision, that's okay as well, because you can come around. There's always lots of different routes to the same destination. And even if it feels like the route that you had planned now is, it's come to an end, that doesn't matter. There will be another route. So I think the media as well is making us all feel that it's very immediate. And this is, our teachers do it to us as well. These are really important. This is the rest of your life. It is important, but there's still different ways to get where you want to be.
Good advice. And Annabelle, yourself?
So I suppose my career hasn't been that long because I'm 27, so I can still really remember applying for university and everything like that. But I didn't actually do A-levels. I did the International Baccalaureate. So when I came from school, like I was one where I just loved every subject and I just found it really hard to choose one. So I chose a course that I could do so many subjects, kind of like school. I then realised that, I suppose, like I said, I loved everything, but I was more passionate about a creative subject. So I actually chose to do an art foundation course before I went to university. So I know that some universities do like that, but a lot of them don't require that anymore. But at the time when I was applying, that was quite a popular thing to do an art foundation. And then I did my degree in illustration. And then I actually took a gap year out before I went to really start my career. So I did my degree in illustration. I worked as a secretary for a year just to save some money, and then I went traveling. So I kind of did, some people do their gap year before, but I had a lot of jobs through uni and I saved it all up and I went traveling for 6 months after that, and then I started my career now. So I kind of did it that way round, which I really liked. I found like sometimes you talk to people who choose to do a gap year earlier, but because I was 22, I was a bit older and I kind of just went off and did it on my own. I really liked it doing it that way. But yeah, that's kind of been my pathway.
Brilliant, thank you. And by no means least, Fred.
So I actually went to university. So I studied tourism management, got a degree, and when I came out, I couldn't really get the job that I wanted. I did work in tourism for about 10 years, but then I gained loads of skills and I did loads of different jobs. But to be honest, I got to a point where I was a little bit tired. I landed in education and I absolutely love it. So it's okay to change your mind, I guess. So even if you do go to university and then you do something completely different, that's okay. I think we all change and it's nice to learn different things and do different jobs and gain loads of skills.
So I'm getting distracted by a cat. What a way to end. Thanks, Jackie. So, folks, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. I know we've just sort of ticked over an hour. I think the amount of advice and information and the guidance you've given to any young people who are watching and who will watch this back has been phenomenal. Huge thank you for sharing your morning with me to talk through all the options for students who are getting their A-level results today. As you've all just shared, it's not easy. It's by no means not the end of the world if you've got grades today that are not going to or haven't met your expectations. And I'm sure there are lots and lots, as we've already discussed, routes to be able to progress and have a really bright and ambitious future. So huge thank you for all coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Good luck to everyone out there.
Yeah, good luck to everybody.
So folks, just a huge thank you to Annabelle, Jennie, Fred, Jackie and Debbie for sharing their stories about their A-level results and qualifications, and also that, you know, it's not the end of the world. There's so many different pathways and options that you can choose moving forwards. It's just about getting in touch with the right people. There are lots and lots of support out there, as we've discussed. Be sure to contact them to be able to support you. So this time next week, we'll be doing this all over again with GCSE results day. We'll have some colleagues from Nico, we'll have Fred, Jackie and Debbie back on, and 2 new guests from Nico as well joining us. So looking forward to seeing you next Thursday for GCSE results day. Thanks.